little girl walked up to Keanu Reeves in a grocery store and asked for milk, with a promise to pay him back when she grew up. What happened next changed both their lives forever. But behind that simple request hides a secret struggle that no one expected. What will Keanu do? Watch to find out. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. Keanu Reeves moved quietly down the aisles of the small grocery store, dressed in a plain hoodie and jeans, blending into the soft bustle of the early afternoon shoppers. The sun filtered gently through the windows, casting a warm glow across the shelves stocked with everyday essentials. Keanu's gaze drifted over the colorful boxes and fresh produce, his mind wandering yet present in the simple task of choosing something to eat. Nearby, a little girl shuffled slowly forward, clutching a small, empty milk carton tightly in her hands. Her clothes were worn but clean, and her hair was tied back in a loose ponytail. Her eyes flickered with a mixture of hope and nervousness as she moved toward the man who seemed so calm and kind in the otherwise busy store. "Excuse me?" she whispered, her voice soft yet clear enough to carry through the faint hum of shoppers talking and carts rolling across the tile floor. "Can I have some milk? I promise to pay when I grow up." She lifted her head, meeting Keanu's eyes with a sincerity that caught him off guard. The moment seemed to pause around them. The background noises softened as several people nearby stopped to watch the quiet exchange, sensing the unexpected warmth blossoming between the two. Keanu's heart skipped. This wasn't just a simple request for milk. There was something unspoken in the child's words, a story waiting to be heard. Keanu knelt down gently to meet her at eye level. His eyes softened as he smiled, a quiet understanding settling in. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice calm and kind, encouraging trust. "Lily," the girl replied shyly, a small smile touching her lips. She tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, looking both bashful and brave in the face of this unexpected kindness. As Keanu reached out to take the milk carton from her hands, a few nearby shoppers discreetly pulled out their phones. Cameras clicked quietly, capturing the tender moment unfolding between the famous actor and this small girl with hopeful eyes. Lily's words echoed softly, "I promise to pay you back when I grow up." The simple phrase lingered in the air, weighted with innocence and a deep, unspoken promise. It stirred something inside Keanu, a reminder of the vulnerability and strength that children carry with them, often unseen. The store's usual rhythm resumed slowly, but the encounter left a palpable warmth in the air. People exchanged quiet smiles, touched by the unexpected connection. Keanu's smile grew a little wider, knowing this was the beginning of something that neither of them could have anticipated. Keanu stayed kneeling, his eyes locked gently on Lily's. The small girl shifted slightly, clutching the empty carton tighter as if it were a treasure. Her hope felt fragile yet fierce, a quiet strength shining through her timid expression. The store lights reflected softly in her wide eyes, making them look even more earnest. "I'm glad you came to me, Lily," Keanu said, his voice warm but steady. "Let's get you that milk." He stood and guided her toward the dairy aisle, his presence calm and unassuming. Around them, the store's other customers whispered softly to one another, still drawn to the moment. A woman nearby smiled knowingly, her phone discreetly capturing the scene unfolding. A few children peeked curiously, sensing a special kind of magic in the air between the actor and the little girl. As Keanu reached for a fresh carton of milk, Lily's gaze darted toward the rows of food on the shelves. Her fingers brushed the carton, and she seemed hesitant for a moment, as if reluctant to believe kindness could come so easily. Keanu noticed and knelt again to meet her eyes. "You know," he said softly, "sometimes, when life feels hard, a little kindness can be the most powerful thing." Lily nodded slowly, her lips pressed together, as if trying to hold back a smile. The sincerity in her eyes made Keanu's chest tighten. Here was a child who had faced challenges but hadn't lost faith. The moment grew more profound as other shoppers began murmuring words of encouragement. Someone whispered, "That kid's brave," while another murmured, "Keanu Reeves is such a good man." The quiet chorus of admiration filled the space between them, but Keanu's attention remained solely on Lily. He handed her the milk carton, now full and cold. "This is for you. No need to worry about paying me back, okay?" Lily's face brightened with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible but full of meaning. As she turned to leave, Keanu called gently after her, "Wait, what's your story, Lily? I want to know more." She paused, glancing back with a shy smile. "Maybe someday," she said quietly. "Right now, I just want to be brave." Cameras continued to flash as the story quietly spread through the store. The encounter, so simple yet so charged with emotion, had already begun to weave itself into the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. Keanu felt something shift inside him, a new purpose stirring quietly but undeniably, born from the innocence of a little girl who promised to pay him back when she grew up. The soft hum of the grocery store returned as Lily clutched her milk carton close and made her way toward the exit, glancing back only once with a hopeful, uncertain smile. Keanu stood quietly, watching her retreating figure with a mix of admiration and curiosity. The ordinary afternoon had transformed into something unforgettable. Shoppers began to murmur excitedly, many pulling out phones to record or share the heartfelt moment. Whispers of kindness, hope, and unexpected connections filled the air. Some wondered aloud who the little girl was, while others praised Keanu's gentle response. The energy was unmistakable, a shared sense that something rare and beautiful had just occurred. Keanu's mind raced as he replayed Lily's words, "I promise to pay when I grow up." That simple phrase echoed, stirring something deeper. He wondered about her story, what challenges she had faced, what dreams she held tightly despite hardship. He turned toward the cashier, who smiled knowingly and said, "That girl has a brave heart." Keanu nodded silently, touched beyond words. As Lily disappeared through the sliding doors, Keanu felt a quiet resolve growing inside him. This wasn't just a chance encounter. It was a call to listen, to understand, and maybe to help. The cameras continued flashing. The moment was captured. A small, profound connection in a world so often rushed and impersonal. And for Keanu Reeves, it marked the beginning of a journey he never expected, but now could not ignore. The question lingered in the air. Who was Lily really? And what story lay behind her innocent request for milk? A promise made with the purest hope of all? Late that evening, as the city settled into its quiet rhythm, the simple yet powerful moment between Keanu Reeves and the little girl named Lily began to ripple across the internet. Video clips captured by other shoppers circulated rapidly, shared under hashtags like Keanu and Lily and Promise to Pay. The footage showed Lily with her shy but hopeful eyes asking softly for milk, and Keanu's gentle smile as he knelt to her level. The innocence and sincerity in her voice struck a chord with millions around the world. Within hours, the story exploded on social media platforms. People were moved by the raw honesty and kindness in the encounter. Memes, heartfelt comments, and emotional posts flooded timelines everywhere. Influencers and celebrities joined the conversation, praising Keanu's compassion and the little girl's bravery. Some viewers expressed a deep longing for such moments of genuine human connection in an often harsh and fast-paced world. News outlets quickly picked up on the viral sensation. Headlines speculated about who Lily was, wondering about her background and what had brought her to that quiet grocery store that afternoon. Articles highlighted Keanu's thoughtful response, interpreting it as a reminder that even small acts of kindness can carry immense meaning. Many journalists shared the video widely, inviting experts to discuss the impact of celebrity compassion and the importance of hope in children's lives. Meanwhile, Keanu's publicist was caught off guard by the sudden surge of attention. The usual media inquiries about his upcoming projects or public appearances were replaced by questions about this touching encounter. Calls and messages streamed in, all focused on understanding the story behind the video and preparing any possible official statements. The publicist reached out to Keanu, amazed by the unexpected viral nature of a moment so simple yet profound. In the quiet of his home, Keanu reflected deeply on the girl's words, "I promise to pay when I grow up." There was something about that innocent vow that resonated far beyond its surface. It was a mixture of hope, determination, and trust, qualities that transcended age and circumstance. He found warmth in that promise, but also an unshakable curiosity about Lily's life, her struggles, and her dreams. The public's reaction continued to grow, not just admiring the kindness shown, but touched by the universality of the moment. It reminded everyone watching that beneath the layers of fame and fortune, there are moments of pure human connection that remind us all of our shared vulnerability and strength. Keanu's thoughts turned toward what this moment might mean for both him and Lily. How could such a small request hold such a powerful message? And what story lay behind those hopeful eyes and that heartfelt promise? The answer seemed just beyond reach, pulling him quietly toward a path he hadn't expected, but was ready to follow. As the night deepened, social media continued to buzz with the story of Lily and Keanu Reeves. The hashtags Keanu and Lily and Promise to Pay trended worldwide, with millions sharing, commenting, and expressing their admiration for the touching moment caught on camera. Clips of Lily shyly asking for milk and Keanu's warm, sincere response were replayed countless times, sparking conversations about kindness, innocence, and the unexpected ways people can touch each other's lives. Let them do, and news outlets began dedicating segments to the story, interviewing experts on the power of small gestures and the importance of hope in children's lives. Some reporters speculated about Lily's background, wondering who she was and why this simple interaction had resonated so deeply with the public. Social commentators debated the impact of celebrity compassion and the role of public figures in uplifting ordinary people. The story became more than just a viral moment. It became a symbol of humanity's enduring capacity for empathy. Keanu's publicist reached out late that evening, surprised by the overwhelming response. This was unlike anything they had anticipated. A quiet afternoon in a grocery store turning into a worldwide sensation overnight. They discussed possible official statements but decided to wait, respecting Keanu's need to process the moment privately. The publicist shared updates about the growing media interest and advised on how to manage the flood of attention while maintaining Keanu's usual, humble, low-profile approach. Keanu himself replayed the encounter in his mind, feeling a mix of warmth and wonder. The little girl's promise to pay for the milk when I grow up carried a weight far beyond a simple childhood vow. It touched something deep within him, a reminder of resilience, hope, and the unspoken stories many children carry with them. Yet beneath that warmth stirred a growing curiosity. Who was Lily really? What challenges had shaped that quiet determination in her eyes? The contrast between the viral sensation and his private reflections highlighted the complexity of the moment. Keanu understood that behind every viral video lies a human story waiting to be told, full of struggles, dreams, and emotions. The simplicity of a small request for milk had opened a door to something far bigger, a chance to connect, to understand, and perhaps to change a life. As the world watched, Keanu remained thoughtful, quietly preparing for whatever came next. The moment was no longer just a fleeting social media event, it was a call to action. A challenge to listen, to care, and to be present in the unexpected moments that define us all. That night, as Keanu lay awake, the city lights flickered through his window, mirroring the swirl of thoughts in his mind. The viral moment replayed over and over, but beyond the warmth it brought, a quiet tension settled in. The simplicity of a little girl's request weighed heavily, tugging at a deeper sense of responsibility and connection. He wondered about Lily's story, the life behind those hopeful eyes, and the promise she had made so earnestly. Meanwhile, the public's fascination grew. People shared their own stories of childhood innocence and promises made in hope. Parents spoke of their children's dreams and the power of small acts of kindness. Online communities organized discussions about how society could better support children like Lily, who carried their hopes quietly but fiercely. Keanu's friends and family reached out, offering support and advice as the spotlight turned from his films to this unexpected chapter of his life. Messages ranged from encouragement to caution, reflecting the complex emotions swirling around the situation. But Keanu's focus remained steady. The girl's words had cracked open a new purpose, one that transcended fame and fortune. Despite the speculation and growing media frenzy, Keanu chose silence, knowing the story was not his to tell yet. He wanted to respect Lily's privacy and the dignity of her situation. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was the start of something profound, a journey he hadn't anticipated but felt compelled to follow. As dawn approached, the city settled into a quiet lull, but Keanu's heart remained restless. The viral moment was just the beginning, a spark that had ignited curiosity, compassion, and a question that only time could answer. Who was Lily, really? And what did her simple promise mean for both of their futures? In a small, sunlit apartment tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, Lily and her mother, Maria, made their home. Though the space was cramped and the furniture worn, the walls held a quiet warmth, filled with laughter, whispered stories, and a deep love that transcended their hardships. The little living room was scattered with crayons, coloring books, and a few well-loved toys, all carefully arranged to create a cozy world for Lily. Maria, a woman in her early 30s with gentle eyes and tired hands, worked multiple jobs to keep the household afloat. She rose before dawn each day, cleaning offices, washing dishes, and running errands well into the night. Often Maria skipped meals herself, saving what little food they had for Lily, who was her heart and hope. Despite the exhaustion that pulled at her every muscle, Maria never let her weariness show in front of her daughter. That afternoon, as Lily clutched the empty milk carton in her small hands, Maria had just returned home from a long shift. She sank onto the worn couch and watched as Lily carefully laid the carton on the kitchen table, a hopeful look in her eyes that Maria recognized all too well. It was a simple request. "Can I have some milk? I promise to pay when I grow up." But it carried the weight of real need, mixed with the innocence only a child could hold. Maria knelt beside her daughter, brushing a stray lock of hair from Lily's forehead. She explained gently, her voice soft but steady, that sometimes money was tight, and they couldn't always buy everything they wanted or needed. She told Lily that even though things were hard now, she believed they would get better. "One day," Maria said, "we won't have to worry about milk or food. We'll have more than enough. And I know you'll do great things." On the small mantel above the worn fireplace sat a faded photograph, framed in silver and dusted with age. It showed a man with kind eyes and a warm smile. Lily's late father, a figure she barely remembered. Maria touched the frame with a mixture of sorrow and longing. He had been gone for years, a quiet presence lost too soon, leaving behind questions and a void in both their lives. But Maria hadn't spoken much about him, afraid the memories might hurt too deeply. But Lily often wondered about the man in the picture, the father she never truly knew. That evening, after Lily had fallen asleep, Maria sat alone in the dim light of their small kitchen, reflecting on her fears and hopes. She feared the struggles that lay ahead, the long nights, the missed opportunities, the harsh judgments from a world that didn't always understand. But more than fear, she held on to hope. Hope that Lily would grow strong, that she would rise above their circumstances, and that somehow the promise in her daughter's eyes would become reality. Maria's love for Lily was fierce and unwavering. She wanted more than anything to protect her daughter from the hardships she had faced, to give her a life filled with joy, opportunity, and security. Though the days were often heavy with worry, Maria never let go of the belief that their story was not one of despair, but of resilience, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. Days in Maria and Lily's modest apartment passed with quiet resilience. Maria rose early, preparing what little breakfast they had, careful to stretch every morsel. She kept a strict budget, often choosing to forgo personal needs so Lily could have shoes that fit or a warm coat for school. Every night, after Lily was tucked in, Maria sat by the window, her eyes tracing the distant city lights, dreaming of a better future for her daughter. Lily was unaware of the full extent of their struggles. Her world was filled with the joy of play, the wonder of stories, and the comfort of her mother's love. Yet, beneath her cheerful smile, was the earnest hope that one day things would change. She often asked innocent questions about their life, not fully grasping the challenges Maria faced. Still, her small heart held the weight of her promise to pay back kindness. A promise born from the simple moment in the grocery store when she asked Keanu Reeves for milk. Maria often found herself torn between the reality of their situation and the desire to shield Lily from its harshness. She would catch herself hesitating before answering questions about money or explaining why some toys were out of reach. Instead, she filled their days with laughter, teaching Lily the importance of kindness, gratitude, and perseverance. The photograph of Lily's father, though a silent witness on the mantel, was a source of quiet stories Maria shared when Lily asked about him. She spoke softly of a man who loved his daughter, though life had taken him away too soon. These stories were bittersweet, a mix of sorrow and hope, meant to remind Lily that family was built not only from presence, but from love that endures. Maria's fears often crept in during the late hours, fears about whether she was doing enough, worries about what the future held, and the constant pressure to provide a stable life. Yet every time she looked at Lily's sleeping face, those fears melted into determination. She promised herself that no matter how hard life became, she would never let Lily lose hope, or the belief that kindness could change everything. Their small apartment became a sanctuary where dreams took root, and despite the hardships, Maria and Lily nurtured a bond that was unbreakable. This was the world behind the viral moment, a story of struggle and hope, where a little girl's simple request revealed the profound strength of a mother's love and a child's unwavering faith. Maria sat quietly on the worn sofa, folding laundry as Lily played nearby with a set of colorful crayons. The walls of their small apartment were decorated with the vibrant artwork Lily had created, rainbows, houses, and smiling stick figures. Amid the modest furnishings, a faded photograph caught Maria's eye. It was a picture of a man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Lily's father, a figure she hardly knew but whose memory lingered like a soft whisper in their lives. Maria often thought about how different things might have been if he had stayed. She wondered what kind of father he would have been, what dreams he might have shared with Lily. But life had taken a different path, leaving her to raise their daughter alone. Though the weight of single motherhood was heavy, Maria never let it show in front of Lily. She wanted to be a source of strength and hope, even when money was tight and days were long. One evening, as the sun set, casting a warm glow through the curtains, Maria sat beside Lily and explained gently, "Sometimes things are hard, sweetheart. We don't always have everything we want or need, but we have each other, and that's what matters." Lily nodded, her small hands clutching a crayon as she listened intently. Maria's voice trembled slightly as she confessed her fears, not just for their survival but for Lily's future. She worried about the world Lily would grow up in and whether she could protect her from its hardships. But beneath her worries was a fierce love and an unshakable hope that Lily would rise above it all. That promise Lily made at the grocery store, the one to pay for the milk when she grew up, was more than just innocent words. It was a reflection of the hope Maria had nurtured in her daughter's heart, a belief that kindness and promise could bridge the gap between their struggles and a brighter tomorrow. In this humble home, filled with love and resilience, the seeds of a remarkable journey were planted, one that would soon intertwine their lives with a man they never expected and change everything forever. Keanu sat quietly in his living room, the soft glow of the evening lamps casting warm light over the familiar space. Around him, his close friends and his sister Kim gathered for a casual evening, sharing stories and laughter as they often did. Yet tonight, the atmosphere shifted as Keanu leaned forward, his voice thoughtful and steady, ready to share something that had deeply moved him. He recounted the unexpected encounter at the grocery store, the little girl named Lily who had approached him with an empty milk carton and a simple, heartfelt promise. She said, "Can I have some milk? I promise to pay when I grow up." Keanu's eyes softened as he spoke, the memory vivid in his mind. The room grew quiet as everyone absorbed the sincerity and innocence of the moment. Kim looked at him, her expression tender. "It's amazing how such a small act can hold so much meaning." Keanu nodded. That moment, it wasn't just about milk. It was about hope, trust, and the unspoken struggles so many face every day. It reminded me of the kindness that exists even in the hardest places. As the conversation unfolded, Keanu's thoughts drifted to his own childhood. He remembered moments of hardship, times when support came not from wealth but from compassion. The shared smiles, the helping hands, the simple gestures that made all the difference. Those memories were a quiet reminder of how fragile and precious kindness truly is. He spoke softly about the struggles he'd witnessed throughout his life, the invisible battles people fight behind closed doors, the weight of poverty, and the resilience of those who refuse to give up. "It's easy to feel overwhelmed by it all," he admitted. "But it's the small kindnesses, the moments of connection, that can change everything." The room seemed to hold its breath as Keanu expressed a growing conviction. This encounter wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was a call to action. He felt compelled to do more, to reach beyond a simple gesture and make a lasting difference. Kim smiled warmly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have the heart and the means to do something incredible." Keanu looked around at the faces of those he trusted most, feeling a surge of purpose. The promise made by a little girl in a grocery store had ignited a spark within him, a determination to turn that kindness into something bigger, something that could inspire and uplift many more. As the evening wore on, plans began to form quietly in Keanu's mind, seeded by that simple request and nurtured by his own experiences. This was more than a moment. It was the start of a journey, one filled with hope, challenge, and the power of human connection. As the evening deepened, Keanu's reflections continued to unfold in the quiet comfort of his home. The gentle hum of the city outside contrasted with the intensity of his thoughts inside. His sister Kim sat close, listening intently, sensing the weight behind his words. Keanu spoke about the faces he had seen during his travels. People struggling silently, children longing for something as basic as a meal, families grappling with uncertainty. He recalled the stories shared by friends working in charities, the heartbreak and hope woven together in every encounter. "It's easy to forget how many go unnoticed," he said quietly. "But Lily's words brought all that back for me." Kim nodded, her voice soft but firm. "Sometimes it's the smallest voices that remind us of the biggest truths." The conversation turned toward the importance of compassion, not just as a fleeting feeling, but as a deliberate choice. Keanu talked about how society often overlooks those who struggle, how so many acts of kindness go unseen because they are quiet and simple. Yet, these acts, he said, build the foundation of true community and healing. He remembered his own family's challenges, the times when support wasn't in grand gestures but in small, consistent kindnesses. The shared meals, the listening ear, the willingness to stand beside one another through tough times. These memories stirred a deep empathy within him. Keanu's voice grew more determined as he spoke about the impact one person can have when they choose to act. It's about recognizing that every person's story matters. Every little promise, like Lily's, carries weight. It's a reminder that kindness can ripple far beyond what we see. His friends and Kim listened with a mixture of admiration and quiet inspiration. The seed of an idea was clearly taking root in Keanu's mind, one that would require courage and commitment, but also offered the potential for profound change. The room felt charged with a shared sense of purpose. Keanu's reflections weren't just personal musings. They were the beginning of something bigger, a call to transform compassion into meaningful action that could touch many lives. As the night wore on, plans started to form, careful, thoughtful, and grounded in the belief that even the smallest kindness could spark a movement. The encounter with Lily was no longer just a story to tell, it was a mission to pursue. Keanu's reflections deepened as the night grew quieter. Alone in his study, he sat by the window, looking out at the city lights flickering in the distance. The memory of Lily's innocent request echoed in his mind. "I promise to pay when I grow up." Those words carried a weight far beyond a simple favor. He thought about all the children he had seen growing up without security or comfort, the way innocence meets hardship in too many lives. For Keanu, it wasn't just about a cup of milk. It was a symbol of hope, trust, and the fragile dreams of those who believe in a better tomorrow despite today's struggles. Memories from his own past surfaced, times when kindness had made an unexpected difference. He remembered a teacher who stayed late to help him understand a difficult lesson, a stranger who once handed him a meal when he was down on his luck. Those moments shaped his understanding of compassion and the responsibility that comes with privilege. Keanu realized that his life had given him opportunities to make a difference that went far beyond his career. The chance encounter with Lily was a wake-up call, a reminder that even simple gestures can carry immense power. It stirred something inside him, a resolve to do more, to create a lasting impact for children like Lily and families like hers. His thoughts shifted to action. How could he turn this moment into something meaningful? How could he ensure that this small act of kindness would not be the end, but the beginning of a larger story? The idea of building a foundation, of creating programs that provided not just essentials, but hope and opportunity, began to take shape. He felt a quiet but firm determination. This was not just about a fleeting interaction. It was about changing lives. The promise Lily made to pay back when she grew up felt like a pact between them, a shared hope for a future where no child would have to ask for the basics. As Keanu prepared for the days ahead, he knew the journey would not be easy. But the strength in Lily's eyes and the sincerity in her voice gave him the courage to move forward. This was a moment of clarity, a turning point where compassion met purpose. The night deepened around him, and with it, a commitment took root, one that would inspire and transform, starting with a single promise made in a quiet grocery store. Keanu sat quietly in his office as his team arranged the meeting with Maria and Lily. He knew this was more than just an act of kindness. It was a chance to build trust and offer something meaningful. When the day came, he chose a small, cozy cafe, a place where privacy was respected and the atmosphere felt calm. He wanted Maria and Lily to feel comfortable, not overwhelmed. Maria arrived first, holding Lily's hand tightly. Lily's eyes were wide with curiosity but also a bit of nervousness. The little girl clung to her mother, unsure of what to expect. Keanu greeted them warmly, his smile gentle and reassuring. He knelt down to Lily's level and spoke softly, "I'm really glad you could come." Lily responded with a shy smile, her earlier courage returning. As they settled into the quiet corner of the cafe, Keanu listened carefully as Maria began to share their story. She spoke of the daily struggles, working long hours, stretching every dollar, and the constant worry about providing for Lily. Maria's voice trembled at times, but there was strength beneath her vulnerability. She explained how Lily's innocence and hope inspired her to keep going despite the hardships. Keanu nodded thoughtfully, feeling the weight of their reality. He asked questions with genuine interest, wanting to understand how best to help, not just with immediate needs, but in a way that would empower Maria and Lily. "What dreams does Lily have?" he asked gently. Maria smiled softly. "She loves music and dancing. She talks about being a singer someday." That moment shifted the conversation toward possibilities. Keanu spoke about the importance of nurturing talents and providing opportunities, not just handing out charity. "I want to support you both, but in a way that helps Lily grow into the person she wants to be," he said sincerely. Maria looked relieved, her eyes welling with gratitude. Lily, meanwhile, listened quietly but beamed when Keanu promised to help her get a music lesson soon. The promise sparked a light in her eyes, a mix of hope and excitement. Keanu knew that offering a path forward was more powerful than any one-time gift. The meeting ended with a sense of mutual respect and understanding. Keanu assured Maria he would be there as a friend and supporter, ready to help build a brighter future for Lily. As they left the cafe, Maria whispered a heartfelt, "Thank you," while Lily waved shyly, clutching her mother's hand tightly. That evening, Keanu reflected on the encounter. This was only the beginning. An offer of hope and partnership that could change lives, built on trust, kindness, and the promise of possibility. The following days were a whirlwind of thoughtful planning and quiet anticipation. Keanu's team coordinated behind the scenes, arranging music lessons, tutoring sessions, and creative workshops for Lily, while also connecting Maria with community resources to ease their daily struggles. Yet, amidst all this activity, Keanu made sure every step was measured with care and respect for their privacy. Maria often called Keanu's assistant, asking questions and sharing updates on Lily's excitement. "She talks about her first music class every day," Maria said one afternoon, her voice tinged with both hope and exhaustion. Keanu made a point to check in personally, sometimes sending encouraging messages or small gifts to show that he was invested not just in their story, but in their lives. During their next meeting, Keanu invited Lily to a small local concert. He wanted her to experience the magic of live music, to see people expressing themselves through song and rhythm. Lily's eyes sparkled throughout the event, and she clutched Keanu's hand tightly when a performer invited children on stage. It was a moment of pure joy and belonging, one that Keanu treasured deeply. Maria, meanwhile, shared more about the challenges she faced, balancing work, school, and the burden of keeping hope alive. Keanu listened without judgment, offering support and guidance wherever possible. He connected her with a counselor who specialized in single-parent families and helped arrange flexible work opportunities for Maria to reduce her stress. One afternoon, as they gathered at the community center for a music lesson, Lily pulled Keanu aside. "I want to sing a song for you," she whispered shyly. With Keanu's gentle encouragement, Lily sang a simple tune, her voice clear and full of emotion. The moment was tender and unforgettable, a glimpse of the bright future that lay ahead. Keanu's heart swelled with a mix of pride and humility. This wasn't just about charity or public image. It was about building real connections and nurturing potential. He saw in Lily the same spark of resilience he had felt in his own childhood, and he was determined to be a steady presence in her journey. The bond between them grew steadily, rooted in trust, kindness, and shared moments of laughter and learning. For Maria, Keanu became more than a celebrity. He was a genuine ally in their struggle, a source of hope and encouragement. And for Lily, he was a role model, someone who showed her that dreams were worth chasing, no matter where you came from. As their story continued to unfold, the initial viral moment remained a reminder of the power of simple kindness and the extraordinary impact one person can have when they choose to listen, to believe, and to act with compassion. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet support Keanu offered began to transform lives in ways none of them could have imagined. Lily's music lessons blossomed into a real passion, and her confidence grew with each passing day. She started performing small recitals at local events, always beaming with joy and pride. Keanu attended whenever he could, his presence a comforting anchor for both Lily and Maria. Maria, too, found renewed strength. Through the connections Keanu facilitated, she enrolled in night classes to improve her job prospects. The community counselor helped her navigate the emotional ups and downs, and she began to believe in a future where financial hardship wouldn't define their lives. Despite the growing attention from the public and media, Keanu remained careful to protect their privacy. He insisted that every step be taken with sensitivity, emphasizing the importance of respecting Maria and Lily's boundaries. This approach earned him quiet admiration from those around him, reinforcing his image not just as a celebrity, but as a compassionate human being. The foundation for children of single parents and those facing hardship was soon in the works, a natural extension of the bond that had formed. Keanu envisioned a place where children like Lily could access music, art, and sports programs, a safe haven that would nurture their talents and dreams regardless of their background. Lily became the foundation's honorary ambassador, her story inspiring thousands who followed their journey online. Her simple promise to pay when I grow up had sparked a movement grounded in hope, resilience, and the power of human kindness. At a small ceremony marking the foundation's launch, Keanu watched as Lily took the stage to speak. Her voice was steady and heartfelt as she thanked everyone for believing in her and other kids like her. The applause was thunderous, a celebration of the incredible journey they had all embarked on together. Keanu's eyes glistened with tears as he thought back to that quiet grocery store encounter, the moment that had set everything in motion. It was a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change the course of lives forever. As the foundation grew, so did the community around it. Families, volunteers, and supporters, all united by a shared belief in giving every child a chance to shine. Keanu remained deeply involved, often seen playing guitar alongside Lily or mentoring other kids, his quiet presence a beacon of hope. In those moments, the world saw the true essence of compassion, not as a fleeting headline, but as a lasting legacy, built on love, trust, and the courage to believe in the impossible. Keanu's visits became a steady rhythm in Lily's world, each one building layers of trust and hope. At first, Lily was shy, hesitant about the attention, and unsure how to respond to this kind man who seemed so different from anyone she had ever met. But Keanu's gentle patience helped her open up in ways she hadn't before. They spent afternoons exploring books, his calm voice guiding her through stories of adventure and courage. Sometimes they sat quietly, Keanu strumming soft chords on his guitar, teaching her the simple beauty of music. Each lesson wasn't just about knowledge, it was about connection. Keanu showed Lily how to find confidence not through grand gestures, but through small, steady steps. He praised her efforts, no matter how modest, reminding her that growth takes time and kindness to oneself. At home, Lily took these lessons to heart. She tried to help her mother more around the cramped apartment, tidying the small space or fetching groceries with a newfound sense of responsibility. Maria noticed these changes with a mix of pride and concern. The weight of their struggles often made her wary of charity. She feared the loss of dignity that sometimes comes with accepting help, especially from strangers. One quiet evening, as Keanu shared tea with Maria, she confided her fears. "It's not just about the money," she said softly. "It's about feeling like I'm failing as a mother if I have to depend on others." Lily deserves more than that." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the reality many face in silence. Keanu listened deeply, his heart aching with empathy. He reassured Maria gently, promising that his support wasn't charity. It was a commitment to seeing Lily's promise come alive. "I'm here for her growth," he said sincerely. "Not just for today, but for all the days ahead." This promise became a foundation on which their fragile trust was built. Keanu understood that true help meant honoring their strength and resilience, not just offering temporary relief. With each visit, the walls between them grew thinner, replaced by shared smiles, quiet moments, and an unspoken bond that transcended words. Lily, encouraged by this support, began to dream aloud. She spoke of the songs she wanted to sing, the stories she hoped to tell on stage, and the day she would keep her promise. Keanu listened, never rushing, always encouraging, his belief in her quietly powerful. Together, they navigated the complexities of their new relationship, one based on respect, hope, and the promise of a better tomorrow. It was a slow, beautiful dance of trust, where every small step mattered and every moment held the potential to change a life forever. Weeks passed, and with each visit, the bond between Keanu and Lily deepened. They moved beyond simple lessons and began sharing parts of their lives. Keanu noticed Lily's natural curiosity and eagerness to learn, her eyes lighting up when she discovered new things. Whether it was a new word in a book, a musical note on the guitar, or a small act of kindness, Lily embraced it all with childlike wonder. At times, Keanu would bring little surprises, simple gifts like colorful notebooks or a new book filled with stories about heroes and kindness. These were not grand presents, but thoughtful gestures meant to nurture her growing spirit. Lily treasured these moments, clutching the gifts close, as if they were treasures that could carry her dreams forward. Meanwhile, Maria continued to open up to Keanu. She shared stories of the challenges she faced raising Lily alone, the nights spent worrying about bills, and the sacrifices made to keep a roof over their heads. She expressed her gratitude for Keanu's presence, but also her concerns about maintaining dignity and independence. "I want Lily to know that strength comes from within," Maria said, her voice steady despite the fatigue beneath it. "I don't want her to think she needs charity to succeed." Keanu respected her resolve. He assured Maria that his role was to empower, not to create dependency. "I want Lily to believe in herself as much as I believe in her," he said earnestly. "And I want her to know she's not alone, not because she can't do it herself, but because everyone needs support sometimes." This mutual understanding formed the backbone of their growing relationship. It was clear that Keanu's involvement was not a fleeting act, but a commitment to be part of Lily's journey, however it might unfold. Lily's promise to pay back kindness when she grew up became a quiet inspiration. Keanu saw in her a resilience that reminded him of his own youth, the small hopes that kept him moving forward through hardships. Together, they cultivated a space where dreams could take root, watered by patience, respect, and love. Through these weeks, Keanu witnessed Lily's gradual transformation. Her laughter grew louder, her steps more confident. Maria found moments of relief, knowing her daughter had someone who truly cared. And Keanu too found something unexpected: renewed purpose in the simple act of helping a young girl believe in her own promise. As the weeks unfolded, Keanu's visits became a steady rhythm in Lily's life. Each time he arrived, it was not just to teach, but to listen and share moments that mattered. Sometimes they would sit on the worn couch in Maria's small apartment, flipping through picture books filled with colorful illustrations and stories of courage. Keanu encouraged Lily to ask questions, to dream beyond the walls that often felt so confining. On other days, they ventured outside to the nearby park. Keanu showed Lily how to strum simple chords on a small guitar he brought along. Her fingers fumbled at first, but with his gentle guidance, she began to find music in her touch. The joy on her face was unmistakable, a spark of confidence that shone brighter each time. Maria often watched from the kitchen doorway, a soft smile playing on her lips. She saw her daughter blossoming under Keanu's care, but she remained cautious. "I worry about the attention," she confided to Keanu one afternoon. "Not just from the public, but what Lily might expect. She's too young to understand how complicated things can be." Keanu nodded, understanding the weight of her concerns. "That's why this has to be about her," he said. "Not the cameras or the stories, just Lily. Learning, growing, becoming who she's meant to be." Maria appreciated this honesty. She began to share more openly about her own fears, the nights she spent worrying about bills, the loneliness of single parenthood, and the desire to protect Lily from a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. Yet through it all, she held on to hope, strengthened by small kindnesses and the promise of a better tomorrow. For Keanu, these visits were more than charity. They were a reminder of the power of connection. He saw in Lily a reflection of resilience and innocence, qualities he had treasured since his own childhood. Her simple promise to pay back kindness someday became a quiet motivation for him, a reminder that even the smallest gestures can ripple into profound change. Together, they forged a new kind of family, not bound by blood, but by trust, respect, and shared hope. And in that fragile, growing bond lay the promise of a future brighter than any could have imagined alone. They sat together on a quiet park bench, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the grassy field before them. The sounds of children playing in the distance mixed with the gentle rustle of leaves in the soft breeze. It was a peaceful moment, a quiet pause amid the swirl of events that had rapidly entered their lives. Lily, clutching her small hands tightly in her lap, looked up at Keanu with earnest eyes. Her voice was soft but filled with conviction. "I really mean it," she said, "when I say, I'll pay you back when I grow up." There was a weight to her words that went beyond a child's simple promise. It carried hope, determination, and a deep sense of gratitude that surprised even Keanu. He smiled gently, feeling the sincerity in her tone. "It's a beautiful promise, Lily," he replied. "And you know, promises aren't just words. They're a kind of commitment, something that connects us to others and keeps us moving forward, even when things get tough." He paused, watching her nod thoughtfully. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice warm and steady. "When I was your age, I faced a lot of challenges. There were times when I felt like giving up, when the world seemed too big and too hard to understand. But it was the kindness of others, small acts from people who believed in me, that kept me going. And it's that same kindness I want to share with you." He began to tell her stories from his own childhood and early years. Tales of persistence and resilience, of moments when kindness changed the course of his life. He spoke of mentors who had encouraged him, of friends who stood by him, and the importance of never losing sight of hope, no matter how difficult things might seem. Lily listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder and admiration. She asked questions, wanting to understand more about what it meant to keep a promise and why kindness mattered so much. Keanu answered patiently, emphasizing how every small act of generosity could ripple out to touch countless lives in ways they might never fully see. As the conversation deepened, a palpable connection grew between them. It was more than just the exchange of words. It was a meeting of hearts, a shared understanding that transcended their differences in age and circumstance. In that quiet moment, beneath the stretching branches and warm glow of the sun, a hope that promises could become realities, and that kindness could build bridges where none seemed possible. Lily's expression softened as she took in everything Keanu shared. She squeezed his hand gently and said, "I want to be like you someday. Someone who helps others and makes a difference." Keanu's eyes glistened with pride and warmth. "And you will be, Lily. I believe that with all my heart." They sat side by side a while longer, the noise of the world fading away as they simply enjoyed the peace of the moment. It was a beginning, not just of a promise, but of a journey they would walk together, hand in hand, toward a brighter future. The following week, Keanu found himself thinking often about that conversation on the park bench. The memory of Lily's determined little voice replayed in his mind like a melody he couldn't shake. There was something extraordinary about the way she said those words, something that reminded him of his own promises made long ago, and how those promises had shaped him. When he met Lily again, it was at the same park, the bench now their unofficial meeting spot. She was wearing a faded yellow dress, her hair pulled back into a messy ponytail, and in her hands was a tiny notebook. As soon as she sat down beside him, she opened it to a page filled with shaky handwriting. "I've been writing down all the ways I can pay you back when I grow up," she announced proudly. The list included things like buying him coffee, helping him carry groceries, planting flowers for him, and even teaching his future children how to draw. Keanu laughed softly, touched beyond words. "That's quite a list, Lily," he said. "But you know, paying someone back isn't always about giving them things. Sometimes it's about passing kindness forward." Lily tilted her head. "Passing it forward? Like giving it to someone else instead?" He nodded. "Exactly. You see, when someone does something good for you, you can repay them by helping another person who needs it. That way, the kindness keeps growing. It's like planting seeds in a garden. You might not see all the flowers bloom, but you know they will." Her eyes lit up at the idea, and she immediately started scribbling in her notebook again, adding, "help other people" to the very top of her list. She looked up at him seriously. "If I do that, does that mean I've kept my promise to you?" Keanu's smile deepened. "Yes, Lily, more than you know." They sat quietly for a while, watching the sunlight dance across the grass. A small dog trotted by, and Lily giggled as it tried to chase a butterfly. Keanu couldn't help but think that this child's simple joy and sense of responsibility were rare, even in adults. There was a strength in her that life's hardships hadn't managed to break, a resilience he admired deeply. As the afternoon wore on, Lily leaned against his arm, comfortable and trusting. "I'm going to start now," she whispered. "I'm going to find ways to help people even before I grow up." Keanu rested his hand lightly on her shoulder and said, "That's the best promise of all." A week later, Keanu returned to the park, carrying 2 small paper bags. One held sandwiches, the other fresh fruit. He spotted Lily on the bench, her legs swinging idly as she sketched something in her notebook. When she saw him, she broke into a smile that seemed to warm the entire park. "I started," she announced as soon as he sat down. She flipped the notebook toward him, revealing a page filled with little drawings, each one representing something she had done that week. There was a stick figure giving bread to another, a child holding a door for someone, and a tiny heart next to the words, "Helped Mom with laundry." Keanu studied the page carefully. "These are beautiful," he said. "Every single one is a promise kept." Lily beamed and took a bite of her sandwich. "It's actually fun," she said. "When I help someone, it feels like I'm making the world a little lighter." "That's exactly it," Keanu replied. "Every time you keep that promise, you make a small part of the world better, and all those small parts add up." The sun dipped lower, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. Lily leaned back, watching the colors shift. "Do you think my dad would be proud of me?" she asked quietly. Keanu didn't hesitate. "I know he would, and I know your mom is." Lily smiled softly, her eyes reflecting both joy and a touch of longing. She closed her notebook, holding it to her chest. "Then I'm going to keep going, no matter what." Keanu nodded, feeling that this moment, this simple exchange on a worn park bench, was the real fulfillment of her original promise. It wasn't about milk anymore. It was about hope, action, and the courage to care. And as they sat there in the fading light, he knew that whatever came next, this seed they had planted together would keep growing. It began with a silence in Maria's voice. Keanu noticed it one afternoon when he stopped by the apartment to drop off a book for Lily. Maria smiled politely, but her eyes seemed distant. There were faint shadows under them, as if she hadn't been sleeping well. Lily was her usual bright self, showing Keanu a new drawing she had made for him, but Maria lingered in the background, distracted. When Lily ran to her room to fetch another picture, Keanu lowered his voice. "Is everything all right?" he asked. Maria hesitated, then sighed. "I lost my job last week," she said quietly. "The company downsized and I was one of the first to go. I've been applying everywhere, but rent is due in 2 weeks, and the electricity bill is already late." Keanu listened without interrupting, his expression softening. He could tell Maria didn't want pity. She was a proud woman who had been carrying her family on her own for years, but the strain in her voice told him this time was different. "I'll figure it out," she added quickly, as though she needed to reassure him. "I always do, but..." She glanced toward Lily's room. "I just don't want her to see me worrying. She's been so happy lately." Keanu nodded slowly. "I understand," he said, "but you don't have to do this alone." That evening, as he drove home, Maria's words stayed with him. He thought about the cluttered desk in her living room, stacked with unopened envelopes. He thought about the way she had brushed off her own hardship to protect Lily's joy. It reminded him of his own mother, who had hidden so much struggle from him when he was a boy. By the time he reached his driveway, Keanu knew he couldn't just stand by. The kindness Lily had sparked in him weeks ago had grown into something deeper. A sense of responsibility, not just for her, but for the foundation she stood on. If that foundation collapsed, no amount of milk or promises would fix it. He called his assistant that night. "I need you to make a rent payment for a friend," he said, keeping the details discreet. "Anonymous, and cover the utilities for the next 3 months." Within 48 hours, Maria received a letter from her landlord stating her balance had been paid in full. The utility company confirmed the same. She stood frozen in her kitchen, letter in hand, tears gathering in her eyes. Lily walked in with a puzzled expression, and Maria quickly composed herself, forcing a smile. She didn't know how, but someone had given them a little breathing room. Maria didn't mention the payment to Keanu right away. She suspected he was behind it, but she also knew he wouldn't want a fuss made about it. Instead, she threw herself into job applications, determined not to waste the grace she had been given. Meanwhile, Keanu kept in quiet contact, stopping by now and then with something small for Lily: a sketchbook, a set of colored pencils, a book of fairy tales. Lily would chatter about her day while Maria prepared tea. It was during one of these visits that Maria finally spoke. "I know it was you," she said gently, setting a steaming cup in front of him. Keanu glanced up, his expression unreadable. "I don't know what you mean," he replied with a hint of a smile. Maria shook her head. "You don't have to pretend. The landlord doesn't just forget to collect rent, and the power company doesn't just forgive overdue bills. It was you." Keanu leaned back in his chair. "If it was," he said slowly, "it's because I didn't want Lily to worry. Sometimes a little peace of mind can change everything." Beery's eyes glistened. "I'm grateful, more than I can say. But I want you to know I'm not looking for handouts. I'll pay it forward. One day, somehow." He nodded. "I believe you will." That same week, Lily noticed something different at school. Her friends had seen the video of her and Keanu in the grocery store and were asking questions. A teacher, moved by the story, had pulled her aside to say she was proud of her. Lily, still too young to understand the reach of viral fame, simply told them, "I made a promise. I'm going to keep it." The moment didn't go unnoticed. A local reporter caught wind of Maria's job loss and Keanu's quiet assistance. They ran a small human interest piece, framing it as a reminder of community compassion. The article didn't name Maria or give away her address, but it mentioned Keanu's involvement and his belief in helping people get back on their feet without taking away their dignity. The story spread quickly. Social media lit up again, but this time with messages of encouragement and offers of work for Maria. Neighbors who had never spoken to her stopped by with groceries or leads on jobs. The ripple effect was undeniable. One quiet act had sparked a chain of generosity. Keanu saw the coverage and smiled to himself. He hadn't planned for it to be public, but if it inspired others to look out for the people around them, it was worth it. Still, he made a mental note to check in on Maria and Lily more often. Because sometimes when someone says they'll pay you back when they grow up, they're not talking about money. They're talking about learning what kindness feels like, so they can pass it on. Maria's luck began to turn. A friend of a friend from church connected her to a small bakery looking for extra help in the mornings. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady, and it allowed her to be home by the time Lily returned from school. The pay wasn't much, but combined with the breathing room Keanu had given them, it was enough to keep the lights on and food in the fridge. One afternoon, after finishing her shift, Maria came home to find Keanu sitting cross-legged on the living room floor with Lily. They were surrounded by colored paper, glue, and glitter. Lily beamed up at her mother, holding a handmade card. On the front, in shaky block letters, it read, "Thank you, Mr. Reeves." Inside, Lily had drawn a carton of milk with a big smiling face and the words, "I will keep my promise." XAY. G. Ryan. X. PT. Op E. Maria leaned against the doorway, watching the scene. Her throat tightened. She saw in Keanu's patient smile and the way he listened to Lily's excited chatter something rare. A genuine interest in who her daughter was and who she might become. That evening, after Lily went to bed, Maria and Keanu sat at the kitchen table. "You've done more than you realize," she told him. "It's not just the bills or the groceries. It's the hope. I'd forgotten what that felt like." Keanu looked at her with quiet sincerity. "Hope's the one thing we can't afford to lose. And sometimes it needs a little help to stick around." Outside, the city hummed with the usual evening sounds, cars passing, distant voices, the faint scent of street food drifting in from the corner. Inside, there was a fragile peace, a small oasis from the chaos of life. The next day, Maria opened her phone to find dozens of messages from strangers. Some offered words of encouragement, others shared stories of times when someone had helped them through hardship. She realized that Keanu's quiet act hadn't just changed her circumstances. It had reminded people that kindness still existed in a world that often forgot to show it. By the end of the week, she'd received enough baking orders from new customers to consider turning it into a small home business. It would be a long road, but for the first time in months, she believed it was possible. Keanu never asked for thanks. He only asked for one thing: that Maria and Lily hold on to the promise they'd spoken about so many times. Not the repayment of money, but the continuation of kindness. Maria intended to keep that promise, and Lily, with her wide eyes and unwavering belief, already understood what it meant. She was learning that a single carton of milk could change more than a day. It could change a life. The idea for the fundraiser started as a quiet conversation at Maria's kitchen table. Keanu had stopped by with fresh bread from the bakery where Maria now worked, and over coffee they talked about ways to make the recent stability last. "You're getting back on your feet," Keanu said, "but I think we can build something bigger. Not just for you and Lily, but for others around here." Maria hesitated. She was still adjusting to accepting help, and the thought of being the focus of a public event made her uneasy. But when Keanu explained that it wouldn't just be about her, it would be about the whole neighborhood, her expression softened. She had seen how many families were in the same position she had been only months before. If her story could inspire others to come together, she was willing to try. Within days, Keanu was quietly making calls. The local community center agreed to host. A few small businesses offered to donate food, drinks, and raffle prizes. Word spread quickly, but it wasn't the star power of Keanu Reeves that fueled the momentum. It was the story of a little girl who asked for a carton of milk and the kindness that followed. On the morning of the event, the community center buzzed with activity. Volunteers set up folding tables, strung up strings of paper lanterns, and arranged baked goods from Maria's kitchen. Lily darted between the tables, her excitement impossible to contain. She wore a simple blue dress with a yellow ribbon in her hair, clutching a piece of paper folded neatly in half. She had been practicing her speech all week, determined to get every word right. When people began to arrive, it was clear that the neighborhood had turned out in full force. Parents came with children, elderly residents brought homemade casseroles, and local shop owners closed early to attend. The air was filled with the sound of laughter, the smell of food, and the hum of conversations between neighbors who hadn't spoken in years. Keanu moved quietly through the crowd, greeting people warmly, making sure the focus stayed on the community rather than himself. He helped carry trays, refill water pitchers, and rearrange chairs for a group of seniors who had trouble walking. Maria watched him work and felt a deep gratitude, not just for what he'd done for her family, but for how naturally he seemed to fit into their lives now. After the first hour, the event was already a success. Donation jars filled quickly, raffle tickets sold out, and the baked goods table was nearly empty. But the highlight of the afternoon was still to come. As the chatter softened and chairs were arranged in a semicircle near the small stage, Lily stood beside Keanu, clutching his hand tightly. It was time for her to speak. The chatter in the community center hushed as Keanu gently guided Lily toward the small wooden stage. She glanced out at the sea of faces, neighbors, friends, people she had seen in passing on the street, and for a moment, her courage wavered. Keanu bent down and whispered something that made her smile. She took a deep breath, stepped forward, and unfolded the paper in her hands. "Hi," she began, her voice a little shaky but clear. "My name is Lily and, I wanted to say thank you." Her small fingers tightened on the paper, but her eyes stayed on the crowd. "A little while ago, I asked someone for milk because my mom and me, we didn't have enough. I told him I would pay him back when I grow up." There was a ripple of quiet laughter and a few sniffles from the audience. Lily's innocence was disarming. She went on, "That person is here today. He didn't just give me milk. He gave me hope. And my mom says, that's even better." She glanced toward Maria, who was wiping away a tear. Lily's speech was short, but each word was sincere. "I want to help other people, the way he helped me. So thank you for coming today, because it means other kids like me can have hope too." The applause was immediate and warm, filling the hall until it seemed to wrap around Lily like a blanket. She stepped back, cheeks flushed, and Keanu placed a hand gently on her shoulder. When it was Keanu's turn to speak, he didn't go to the microphone right away. He looked around the room, letting the moment breathe. "You've just heard the most important words you'll hear today," he said finally, his voice calm but steady. "They came from Lily, and they remind us that kindness isn't just about one moment. It's about what that moment can grow into." He told the audience that communities thrive when people show up for one another, even in small ways. A smile, a meal, a few hours of your time, it all matters, he said. "We can't fix every problem, but we can make sure no one has to face them alone." He didn't talk about himself or his career. Instead, he talked about Maria's determination, Lily's courage, and the generosity of the people in the room. By the time he stepped down, there was a quiet hum of inspiration in the air. The event continued with live music from a local band, kids' games outside, and a table where people could sign up to volunteer at the community center. It wasn't just a fundraiser anymore. It was a reunion of sorts, a reminder of what could happen when neighbors became more than strangers. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Maria approached Keanu with a tentative smile. "You've done more than help us," she said softly. "You've brought people together." Keanu simply nodded, his eyes drifting toward Lily, who was chasing bubbles in the courtyard, her laughter carrying across the warm evening air. As the music faded and people began packing up, the air in the community center felt lighter. Neighbors who had come as strangers now exchanged phone numbers, making plans to meet again. What began as a small fundraiser had turned into the start of something bigger. Lily sat in the corner, wearing a paper crown a volunteer had made for her. "It's my kindness crown," she told a group of kids. "Anyone who helps someone else can wear it." The children nodded, as if she'd just made it an official rule. Keanu stood with Maria, watching. "She's something else," he said softly. Maria smiled, her voice trembling. "She's stronger than she knows. And I think you've helped her see that." The community center director approached, beaming. Donations had not only covered Maria's bills, but left enough to create an emergency fund for other struggling families. Maria pressed a hand over her mouth, tears welling. When the hall finally emptied, Maria and Lily walked Keanu to his car. Lily skipped ahead, swinging her tote bag. "You're still coming next week, right?" she asked. "Wouldn't miss it," Keanu said. Maria lingered. "You could have just written a check and left," she said. "But you didn't. You showed up." "Sometimes showing up is the most important thing," Keanu replied. Lily returned and handed him a folded paper. A drawing of two people on a park bench with the words, "I will help people when I grow up." Keanu slipped it into his jacket. "That's one promise I believe you'll keep," he said before driving off, knowing this was only the beginning of their story. The months that followed the fundraiser brought small but steady changes to Lily's life. School no longer felt like a place she had to survive, but somewhere she could shine. With the new set of books Keanu had sent and a refurbished laptop donated by a neighbor, she began tackling her homework with a quiet determination that even her teachers noticed. Her reading level jumped by 2 grades in just a few months. Maria would often find her curled up in the corner of their modest apartment, absorbed in a book, her lips moving slightly as she sounded out new words. When Keanu called to check in, Lily would proudly read him a paragraph from whatever story she was working through. Maria's life began to shift as well. With the help of one of Keanu's contacts, she secured a part-time position at a local bakery. The hours were early, but the work was steady, and the pay, while not much, was reliable. She carried herself with a new kind of confidence, walking a little taller, speaking with more assurance. Keanu didn't visit every week, but when he did, it felt like a special occasion. Sometimes he brought Lily a puzzle or a sheet of music to learn on the old keyboard they'd salvaged from a neighbor's garage. Other times he came empty-handed, just to sit with them, share coffee, and talk about the small victories in their lives. Lily had grown bolder around him too. She would tell him about her favorite subjects in school, the friends she'd made, and the dream she now had of becoming a teacher one day. "That way," she explained, "I can help other kids like you helped me." One rainy afternoon, Maria admitted something quietly over the kitchen table while Lily worked on her homework nearby. "I didn't realize how much hope we'd lost until it started coming back," she said. "It's not just the help, Keanu. It's knowing someone cares enough to keep showing up." Keanu nodded, his gaze settling on Lily as she leaned over her workbook, tongue peeking out in concentration. "Sometimes," he said softly, "showing up is the start of everything." By early spring, Lily's progress was impossible to ignore. Her teachers sent glowing notes home praising her effort and the way she encouraged her classmates. She had become the type of student who stayed behind to help others understand an assignment, her hand shooting up, not just to answer questions, but to ask them. Maria noticed how different the energy felt at home. There was more laughter now, more lightness in their conversations. Even on the days when money was still tight, They could sit together for dinner and talk about plans instead of problems. Keanu's influence had stretched beyond what he had given. It was in the way Lily approached challenges, and in the renewed hope Maria carried in her chest. Keanu kept his visits unannounced, slipping quietly into their lives without turning it into a spectacle. On one occasion he arrived just as Lily was leaving for school. She ran back to hug him, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "I got an A in math," she announced proudly, her eyes bright with excitement. "That's incredible," he said with a smile. "What's next?" She grinned. An A in everything. It wasn't just Lily who was changing. Maria had started baking at home in the evenings, experimenting with recipes she learned at the bakery. She brought samples to the community center, and before long, people began asking if she sold them. It sparked a quiet idea in her heart that maybe one day she could run her own small business. One Sunday, Keanu joined them for lunch in their apartment. He sat at the table listening as Lily rattled off a list of things she wanted to do in the future. Each one was ambitious, but each one was rooted in the idea of helping others. "I think," Maria said, watching her daughter speak, "she's starting to believe she can change the world." Keanu's smile was warm but thoughtful. "One step at a time," he replied. "That's how change really happens." As they finished lunch, the rain outside cleared and sunlight filled the room. It felt like a quiet sign that they were all moving toward brighter days. As summer approached, the changes in Lily's world became even more visible. She joined the school's drama club, encouraged by Keanu's gentle nudges to explore her creative side. Standing on stage during rehearsals, she wasn't the shy girl who had once quietly asked a stranger for milk. She projected her voice, carried herself with confidence, and even offered to help new members learn their lines. Maria often stood at the back of the auditorium during practice, her heart swelling with pride. Every small victory felt monumental because she remembered all too well the days when just paying the electric bill seemed impossible. Now their home felt warmer, not from the lights, but from the growing sense of possibility. Keanu continued to be present in subtle but meaningful ways. He called Lily before her school play to wish her luck, telling her to just have fun and be yourself. After the performance, he sent her a bouquet of daisies, a flower she had once told him reminded her of happiness. Maria's own progress mirrored her daughter's. She had taken on more shifts at work and was saving steadily. The dream of starting her own small baking business was slowly taking shape, and with each passing week, her self-confidence grew. She and Lily began spending weekends experimenting with new recipes, turning their tiny kitchen into a place of laughter and sweet aromas. One evening, as the three of them walked through the park, Lily skipped ahead, chasing after a butterfly. Maria turned to Keanu. "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done," she said softly. Keanu shook his head. You don't need to thank me, just keep going. That's the real thanks." In that moment, Maria realized something important. Keanu's greatest gift hadn't been financial support or even his time. It was the belief he'd instilled in both of them, the unshakable conviction that they were capable of building something better. As Lily ran back to join them, slipping her small hand into each of theirs, Maria knew their journey wasn't over. But now they were moving forward together, stronger than ever, with hope leading the way. The interview was supposed to be about Keanu's latest film. The studio lights glowed warmly, cameras stood ready, and the host shuffled a stack of cue cards. Yet when the conversation turned to life outside acting, Keanu paused, his eyes softening. "There's this little girl I met a while ago," he began, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of meaning. "She walked up to me one day and asked for milk, not for herself, but with this quiet promise that she'd pay me back when she grew up." The host tilted her head, intrigued. "That's unusual. What did you say?" Keanu smiled faintly, almost as if recalling the exact moment. "I told her I believed her. That's simple. I didn't know her story then, but something in her eyes, hope, determination, maybe both, stuck with me. He spoke about their later meeting with Maria, Lily's mother, and how he learned about their struggles. He described Maria's quiet resilience, how she worked tirelessly to keep her daughter safe and hopeful, even when money was tight and the future uncertain. He didn't linger on his own role, instead highlighting their courage. It made me realize, he continued, that generosity isn't just about giving something away. It's about seeing someone, really seeing them, and believing they can become more than their circumstances. The audience, in the studio, was silent. The host leaned forward. "And did she ever repay you?" Keanu chuckled softly. "Not yet, but she will, in her own way. Maybe not with money, but with the kind of person she's becoming. That's worth more than any dollar bill." He spoke of the afternoons spent teaching Lily small skills, of watching her grow braver and more confident. He emphasized that it wasn't about charity, it was about trust. Trust that she would one day keep her word, and that along the way she'd help others too. By the time the segment ended, the room felt lighter. The host, smiling warmly, told the viewers that the world needed more of that kind of belief in each other. The story was already taking root in their hearts. The clip from the interview was uploaded online within hours. At first, it was just a few short segments. Keanu's calm voice, the story of a little girl, and that single phrase, "I told her I believed her." By the next morning, it had been shared thousands of times. People in different countries posted their own stories of kindness, of strangers who had once believed in them when no one else did. Teachers wrote about students who reminded them of Lily. Parents shared how they had once faced days when they couldn't afford milk for their children. What made the story powerful wasn't that a famous actor had helped a struggling family. It was that he had refused to see them as just a sad case. He had seen potential, and he had treated Lily's promise as something real and worth trusting. Talk shows began discussing it. One commentator said, "It's rare to hear about celebrities who don't just throw money at a problem, but actually get involved, building relationships and trust." Another added, "This isn't about a transaction, it's about dignity." Maria and Lily began receiving letters from people they had never met, notes filled with encouragement, prayers, and offers of help. Maria kept them in a small box on the kitchen counter, reading one each night to remind herself that the world could still be kind. Keanu, when asked if he regretted sharing something so personal, shook his head. Some stories are meant to be told, especially when they can remind people that kindness doesn't have to be grand to be life-changing. He stressed that it wasn't about turning him into a hero. "I'm not the center of this story," he told another interviewer. "The center is a little girl who believed in herself enough to make a promise, and a mother who never gave up on her." The more the story spread, the more people felt compelled to act, not just talk. Community drives for school supplies popped up. People began quietly covering grocery bills for strangers. And everywhere the story traveled, one small phrase followed: "Believe in the promise." In the weeks that followed, the phrase "believe in the promise" became more than a trending hashtag. It was printed on signs in classrooms, painted onto murals in community centers, and scribbled on sticky notes stuck to bathroom mirrors. Schools began hosting Promise Days, where students would write down a commitment to themselves or others and place it in a box to be read aloud months later. Local news outlets featured children holding handwritten notes with goals like, "Help my mom smile more," or "Share my lunch with someone who forgets theirs." For Maria, life felt both surreal and grounding. She still had bills to pay and meals to cook, but now there was a safety net woven by neighbors, strangers, and friends she didn't know she had. She often caught Lily practicing her reading with renewed determination, whispering to herself, "When I grow up, I'll keep my promise." Keanu, while humbled by the public reaction, stayed focused on the private moments. He continued to check in with Lily, sometimes dropping off a new book or simply sitting with her on a park bench to talk about her week. To him, the real success was watching her confidence grow, not the headlines. In one follow-up interview, he addressed the story's reach. "I've been in movies that played in theaters around the world, but I don't think any role I've played has touched people in as many places as this one little moment did. Maybe because it wasn't a role at all, it was real." He paused, almost as if speaking to Lily through the camera. "You'll keep your promise one day, and when you do, the world will be better for it." Those words were clipped and replayed countless times, inspiring people to look for the Lileys in their own lives, those moments when belief could change the course of someone's story. And as the attention eventually quieted, what remained was something lasting, the knowledge that a simple act, rooted in trust, could ripple across the world and return as hope in unexpected places. For Keanu, Maria, and Lily, it was no longer just a story. It was a shared promise. The afternoon sun streamed through the window of the small cafe where they had agreed to meet. It was quieter than usual, the soft hum of a coffee machine and the muted clink of cups in the background. Lily sat across from Keanu, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her feet swinging just above the floor. Maria sat beside her, curious but unaware of what Keanu had planned. Keanu reached down beside his chair and lifted a soft leather case onto the table. It wasn't large, but it carried a certain presence, the way a gift does when it has been chosen with deep thought. He slid it toward Lily, watching her eyes widen. "For you," he said simply. Her small fingers hesitated at first, then pulled the zipper open. Inside was a guitar, child-sized, polished, and warm in color, its strings catching the sunlight. A patterned strap lay neatly coiled beside it, and tucked into the front pocket was a small notebook with a deep green cover. Lily's breath caught. "It's beautiful," she whispered, tracing the smooth wood with her fingertips. "I thought," Keanu began, leaning forward, "that you might like a way to tell your story. Sometimes words aren't enough. Sometimes music can say things we can't find the right sentences for. This guitar is yours. The notebook is for anything you want, songs, thoughts, even just doodles." Maria's eyes softened as she placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You didn't have to." Keanu shook his head. "I wanted to. Lily has a spark. I see it. And sparks need room to grow." Lily clutched the guitar to her chest for a moment, before setting it gently on the table. She picked up the notebook and opened the first page. Inside, written in Keanu's careful handwriting, were the words, "Dream wide, work hard, keep your promise." Her eyes glistened. "I will," she said with quiet determination. "I'll work hard. I'll keep my promise." Keanu smiled, a soft warmth in his voice. "You already are, Lily, just by being you." Lily sat with the guitar across her lap, her small hands hovering uncertainly over the strings. Keanu reached forward, showing her how to hold it properly, adjusting the strap so it fit snugly across her shoulder. He strummed a slow, gentle chord, letting the sound linger in the air before guiding her fingers to try the same. At first, the strings buzzed under her touch, the notes uneven. But Keanu nodded encouragingly. "That's it. Every musician starts here. The sound doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours." Lily tried again, her brow furrowed in concentration. This time, the chord rang a little clearer. She looked up at Keanu with a shy smile. "It's harder than it looks." "Most things worth doing are," Keanu replied. "But you keep at it, and one day you'll play something that makes someone stop and listen. And in that moment, you'll know it was all worth it." Maria watched quietly, her heart full. For months, she had worried that life's hardships might weigh too heavily on her daughter's spirit. Yet here was Lily, leaning into a challenge with hope in her eyes, guided by someone who believed in her completely. When Lily finally set the guitar down, Keanu handed her the notebook again. "Music can say what words can't. But sometimes you'll want the words too. Write your ideas here. Doesn't matter if they're messy. Doesn't matter if they make sense right away. Just put them down. Lily opened to the first blank page and, with a purple pen she'd pulled from her pocket, wrote in big, uneven letters, Song 1, The Promise. She looked at Keanu, almost as if asking permission to use the title. He grinned. That's perfect. Maria reached for the notebook, running her fingers over the cover. This is more than a gift, she said softly. It's something she can carry for the rest of her life. Keanu met her eyes. That's the idea. I don't just want to help for today. I want Lily to have something that keeps helping her tomorrow and the day after that. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, Lily sat beside Keanu on the front steps of the small community hall where they had spent the afternoon. She clutched the guitar case with one hand and the notebook with the other, as though both were treasures too precious to let go. She turned to him, her voice small but steady. When I grow up, I'm going to give this back to you. I don't know how yet, but I'll figure it out. I'll make you proud. Keanu shook his head gently. You already have. You don't owe me anything, Lily. The world is full of people who need kindness, and one day, you'll be the one giving it. That's all the promise I need you to keep. Her eyes shimmered, reflecting the fading light. But I want to give you something too. He smiled, placing a hand over hers. Then keep being you. That's the gift. That's how you've already paid me back. Maria stood a few steps away, listening. She swallowed the lump in her throat, realizing this was more than a moment between a man and a child. It was a moment shaping who her daughter would become. They sat together in the stillness, the distant hum of traffic barely touching the quiet space around them. Keanu glanced toward the horizon. Someday, you're going to play a song on that guitar that will make someone believe in themselves. You'll write words that give hope to someone who's lost theirs. And when that happens, you'll remember this day, and you'll know it was the start of something bigger than either of us. Lily leaned her head against his arm. Then, I'll start practicing tomorrow. That's my girl, he said warmly. As they rose to leave, Keanu took one last look at her, guitar case in hand, notebook tucked under her arm. She looked small against the backdrop of the evening sky, yet he knew her spirit was already too big for the limits life had tried to place on her. And in that moment, he felt certain her promise would not be broken. Winter came early that year, bringing cold winds and shorter days. At school, Lily found herself in the middle of a challenge she hadn't expected. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had announced a statewide academic competition, one that required students to research a topic, write an essay, and present it in front of a panel of judges. For many kids, it was just another project. For Lily, it felt like a mountain. She had never stood in front of a crowd before. Speaking up in class was hard enough, let alone delivering a speech to strangers. But something about the topic, the power of kindness in changing lives, made her pause. It was as if the assignment had been written just for her. She thought of Keanu, of the guitar, of his words that day on the steps. She remembered his voice, telling her she would one day give someone hope. Maybe this was her chance. Still, doubt crept in. She had never written anything that mattered before. Maria noticed her lingering over a blank page at the kitchen table, chewing her pencil until her hands cramped. You can do this, her mother encouraged softly. You have a story no one else has. Lily nodded, but inside she felt small. That night, she pulled out the notebook Keanu had given her. The first page was still empty. She ran her fingers over the cover, then opened it. Slowly, she began to write, not about facts or research at first, but about her life. About the day she asked a stranger for milk. About how that stranger became a friend. About promises. In the weeks that followed, she worked after school, scribbling paragraphs between homework assignments and chores. When Maria worked late, Lily would sit by the window with a blanket around her shoulders, reading her essay aloud to herself. She stumbled over words at first, but each time she imagined Keanu listening, nodding, reminding her to keep going. By the time the submission deadline came, her hands were ink-stained and her voice felt stronger. She didn't know if she would win, but she knew she had done something she once thought impossible. And deep down, she felt the quiet spark of keeping a promise beginning to glow. The day of the competition arrived, with gray skies and the smell of rain in the air. Lily clutched her worn notebook to her chest as she walked into the school auditorium. The rows of chairs, the bright stage lights, and the low hum of voices made her knees feel weak. Students milled around, some rehearsing in hurried whispers, others laughing confidently with friends. Maria sat in the back row, her eyes locked on her daughter, willing her to be brave. Keanu wasn't there in person, but Lily knew he was somewhere across town, quietly rooting for her. He had told her once that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was moving forward, even when fear stood in your way. Names were called one by one, and Lily's turn crept closer. Her palms were damp, and her heartbeat felt loud in her ears. When her name echoed through the auditorium, she stood, legs shaky but determined, and walked toward the stage. The microphone seemed taller than she was. She adjusted it, took a deep breath, and opened her notebook. At first her voice trembled, but as she began telling her story, how a small act of kindness had changed her life, something shifted. The words became clearer, stronger. She spoke about promises, about how they weren't just words but seeds that could grow into something beautiful. She didn't mention Keanu's name, but she described him in a way that made the audience lean in. A stranger who had listened, believed, and given without expecting anything in return. She told them how that single moment had made her want to give back someday. When she finished, the room was quiet for a heartbeat, then filled with warm applause. She saw her mother's proud smile, her teacher's approving nod, and for the first time she felt taller. She didn't know whether she had impressed the judges, but she knew she had faced something bigger than herself and hadn't backed down. In her heart, she felt that this too was part of the promise, proving to herself that she could stand, speak, and share something worth hearing. The results were announced at the end of the program. Lily sat in her seat, trying to steady her breathing as the judges read out the winners. Her name wasn't called for first place, or second, or even third. For a moment, disappointment pricked at her, sharp and unexpected. But then, as the applause swelled for the winners, she remembered Keanu's voice in her mind. "It's not about the trophy," he had said once. "It's about who you become while you're reaching for it." She looked around the room and saw faces smiling at her. Classmates, teachers, even a few strangers who had been touched by her words. One of the judges caught her eye and mouthed, "Beautiful speech." That meant more to her than any ribbon. When Maria wrapped her in a hug afterward, she whispered, "You made me proud, Lily. That's all that matters." Lily nodded, knowing deep down that she had kept her promise. In a small but meaningful way. Later that evening, she sat on her bed, the notebook still in her hands. She picked up her phone and typed out a short message to Keanu. "I didn't win, but I think I still kept the promise. Thank you for believing in me." Minutes later, his reply came through. "You did more than keep it. You honored it. The world is better every time you try." Lily smiled, feeling the word settle deep in her chest like a steady heartbeat. She realized that this was only one step in a lifetime of moments where she could choose kindness, stand tall, and follow through. That night, she placed her notebook on the table beside her bed, its pages already filled with dreams, stories, and reminders of what she was capable of. She drifted to sleep thinking of new ways she might help others, imagining the day she could be the one to listen to someone else's promise and help them keep it. In the quiet, she understood something new. Promises weren't about owing something back. They were about carrying forward the spark someone else had given you and making sure it never went out. It happened on an ordinary Saturday afternoon. Keanu had been invited to a small community music festival in the park, an event organized by local volunteers. He almost declined, but when he learned they were short on performers, he thought of Lily. She had been practicing a song for weeks, though she had never sung in front of a large crowd. When he called her, she hesitated, but the quiet excitement in her voice gave her away. By the time they arrived, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. The stage was modest, just a raised platform with a simple microphone, but the crowd was warm and welcoming. Lily's hands were trembling as she held her guitar, a gift from Keanu months before. He leaned down and said softly, "Just sing it like you're singing to a friend. That's all an audience really is." When her name was called, Lily stepped up, cheeks flushed, eyes scanning the rows of faces. She strummed the first chords with a shaky breath, but by the second verse, her voice found its footing. Keanu stayed just a few steps behind her, adding quiet harmony on the chorus. Someone in the audience began filming. The song was simple, about keeping promises, about kindness coming back around. But there was something in the way Lily sang it, with every ounce of sincerity she had, that made people stop what they were doing. Her voice wasn't polished, but it was honest. Keanu's gentle backing gave the performance an unexpected depth, like two stories intertwining in real time. When the song ended, the applause was instant and unrestrained. Keanu gave her a small nod and mouthed, "You did it," while she tried not to cry from relief. She didn't know it yet, but that shaky, heartfelt performance was about to travel far beyond the park. The video clip made its way to social media that very night. By morning, it had been shared thousands of times. People were struck by the image of a Hollywood star quietly supporting a young girl, letting her shine while he stayed in the background. The clip kept spreading. Within 48 hours, it was everywhere. On Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even in morning news segments. The headline that seemed to appear most often was, "Keanu Reeves keeps his promise to a little girl who promised to pay it forward." People replayed the video not just for Lily's song, but for the way Keanu stood beside her, hands relaxed, smiling like he had all the time in the world to let her have her moment. In an era where celebrity moments were often loud and self-seekered, this one felt rare. It was quiet, humble, and deeply human. The hashtag Promise to Pay appeared again, trending in multiple countries. Users began sharing their own acts of kindness under the tag. One woman posted about paying for a stranger's groceries. A teacher wrote about staying after school to help a struggling student. A father shared that he had finally called his estranged brother to apologize. Maria watched the numbers rise from their kitchen table. She wasn't on social media much, but Lily showed her the posts, thousands of strangers talking about kindness because of them. Maria felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. Lily, on the other hand, was mostly stunned that people she'd never met were quoting her lyrics. News anchors discussed the moment on air. One segment even replayed part of Keanu's earlier interview, where he'd first told the story of the little girl who asked for milk and promised to return the kindness someday. Now, the world could see she was doing it, in her own way, one note at a time. Keanu's phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends, colleagues, and fans, but when he replied to Lily, it was simple. "You inspired people today. That's worth more than you know." In the days that followed, invitations began to pour in. Local radio stations wanted Lily to perform. A community arts group offered her a scholarship for music lessons. Maria was cautious about moving too quickly, but Keanu reassured her that she could take it step by step. The point wasn't to make Lily famous. It was to give her the tools to keep growing, to honor the promise she had made long before anyone was watching. The momentum didn't fade as quickly as viral moments often did. Instead, it evolved. People began organizing community events under the Promise to Pay banner, small concerts, neighborhood cleanups, school fundraisers. Photos of Lily's performance with Keanu were often printed on flyers or displayed on screens at these gatherings, serving as a reminder of how one act of kindness could ripple outward. Maria noticed a shift in Lily. She was still the same girl who helped with dishes and did her homework at the kitchen table, but there was a new sense of responsibility in her. She began writing more songs, each one centered on kindness, hope, and perseverance. She even wrote a short piece about her mother's sacrifices, which Maria couldn't listen to without tears welling up. Keanu kept in touch regularly, but he stayed away from making it about himself. If anything, he stepped back a little, letting Lily's own efforts take the spotlight. He'd send short voice messages encouraging her before performances, or a photo of a guitar pick he thought she might like. One evening, a major charity organization reached out, asking if Lily would like to be part of their annual televised fundraiser. Maria hesitated, worried it might be too much pressure, but Lily surprised her. "I think I should," she said softly. "If I can help other kids, then it's part of paying it forward." When Keanu heard, he simply said, "Then I'll be there, in the audience, cheering you on." As plans were made, the story continued to inspire. Teachers reported that their students had started organizing kindness clubs. A few small businesses announced they were donating a percentage of their profits to local food banks in honor of the movement. On the night before her big fundraiser performance, Lily sat in her room, strumming the guitar Keanu had given her. Maria stood in the doorway, watching quietly. There was no audience now, no cameras. Just a little girl keeping a promise she had once made in a grocery store aisle, not knowing how far it would take her. The next day, the world would see her again, and they would remember that kindness, once given, has a way of returning in ways no one can predict. The years rolled forward, carrying with them countless changes, but one thing remained constant. Lily never forgot the promise she had made as a child. Now, in her early 20s, she stood at the heart of a brightly lit community center, her name listed on the program as a guest speaker. She wasn't there as a celebrity or a performer. She was there as the founder of a youth mentorship program designed to help children from underprivileged backgrounds discover their talents. Her posture was confident, her voice clear as she spoke to a group of wide-eyed kids about believing in themselves. The program room was filled with the sound of their laughter as she encouraged them to share their dreams. Some wanted to be teachers, some doctors, some musicians. Lily nodded at each one, reminding them that no dream was too small or too far away. Maria sat in the front row, her eyes glistening with pride. She remembered the days when paying the electric bill had been a battle, when Lily's dreams had been boxed in by the walls of their small apartment. Now, those dreams had stretched into something big enough to help others. In the back of the room, leaning casually against the wall, Keanu watched quietly. His hair had silvered a bit, but his presence was still warm and steady. He didn't need to be introduced. Most people didn't even realize he was there until the event neared its end. He preferred it that way. This was Lily's moment, not his. After the speeches and group activities, the children rushed to the refreshment table, leaving Lily a moment to breathe. She spotted Keanu and broke into a smile that carried the weight of all the years between their first meeting and now. She walked straight to him and hugged him without a word. "You kept your promise," Keanu said softly. "I had to," Lily replied, her voice full of conviction. "You showed me how." For a long moment, they stood together in the bustling community hall, not needing to say much more. The promise, once a simple sentence in a grocery store aisle, had become a lifelong mission. As the event wound down, Maria approached Keanu, quietly, weaving through the small groups of children and volunteers. She looked older, but there was a light in her expression that hadn't been there all those years ago. The tiredness that had once marked her face had been replaced by gratitude and peace. "I never got to say this enough," she began, her voice almost trembling. "You didn't just help us survive, you helped us live." Keanu shook his head gently. You did the living, Maria. I just gave a little push when you needed it. Maria smiled, but there was moisture gathering in her eyes. It was more than a push. You gave my daughter the chance to believe she could be more than her circumstances, and you gave me back my dignity. The words settled between them, heavy with sincerity. Keanu, never one to bask in praise, simply reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. You raised a remarkable young woman. That's all you. Across the room, Lily was showing one of the younger kids how to hold a guitar, adjusting their fingers gently on the frets. The child's face lit up with excitement as they strummed a chord, the sound echoing softly. Watching her, Maria felt a surge of pride so deep it was almost overwhelming. One of the local news reporters who had come to cover the community program noticed Keanu's presence and began snapping a few photos from a respectful distance. But Keanu ignored the camera, focusing instead on Lily. She had become everything he had hoped she might, and more. Lily glanced up, catching both her mother and Keanu watching her. She grinned and waved them over. "Come on," she called out. "We're taking a big group photo." Maria laughed, shaking her head. Some things never change. She's still bossy. Keanu chuckled, following Maria toward the gathering. The children swarmed around them, some shy, some full of energy, all eager to be part of the moment. It wasn't a staged scene for publicity. It was simply a memory being made, a moment of shared joy, framed by the echoes of a promise kept. The group photo was a tangle of arms and laughter, the kind of picture where no one is standing perfectly straight, but every smile is genuine. Keanu knelt down in the front row, with Lily beside him holding her guitar, Maria just behind them. Someone shouted, "Say kindness," and the room erupted in cheerful voices. After the photo, the crowd began to disperse, but Keanu lingered. He stepped outside into the evening air, the sound of children's laughter still drifting from the community center. A moment later, Lily joined him, guitar case in hand. "You know," she said, leaning against the railing, "when I was little, I promised I'd pay you back someday. I think maybe I'm starting to keep that promise." Keanu looked at her, the streetlights casting a soft glow across her face. "You've already kept it, Lily. Every kid you've helped, every moment you've shown up for someone. That's more than I could have asked for." Lily's eyes softened. "I guess it's not really about paying it back to you. It's about passing it on." He smiled. "Exactly. That's how it works. One act at a time." From across the street, Maria waved to them, ready to head home. Lily slung her guitar over her shoulder and started toward her mother, but halfway there, she turned back. "Keanu, thank you for believing in me before I even believed in myself." He gave a small nod, his voice quiet but steady. "Always." They parted ways, but the warmth of the evening stayed with him. As Keanu walked toward his car, he realized that what had started years ago as a simple gesture, buying milk for a little girl, had grown into something much bigger. It had become a living, breathing testament to the idea that kindness, once planted, never really stops growing. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this wasn't the end of Lily's story. She would go on to inspire others, just as she had inspired him. The cycle would continue, just as it was meant to. The years had turned the once small moments into vivid memories, like pages in an album that could be opened at any time. Keanu stood in his quiet home one evening, sorting through a small box of photographs and mementos. The first picture on top was an old snapshot someone had taken at the grocery store. Lily, no more than 8 years old, holding a carton of milk and smiling shyly. He remembered the day with perfect clarity, the way she had looked him in the eye and promised to pay him back someday. It had seemed like a simple exchange at the time, but now he knew it was the start of something far greater. As he sifted through the images, he found others. Lily on the small park bench during their first real conversation, her legs barely reaching the ground. Her determined face during the community fundraiser, speaking into the microphone with a voice that shook at first but grew stronger with every word. And the photo from the volunteer event just weeks ago, where she stood as a confident young woman surrounded by children who looked at her with the same wide-eyed trust she had once shown him. These images told a story more powerful than any film he had acted in. They were a testament to the idea that a single act of kindness, offered without expectation, could ripple outward for years, touching lives in ways impossible to measure. He thought about the countless people who had reached out after hearing Lily's story, strangers from around the world who had been inspired to help someone in their own community. Messages had come from teachers, parents, and even children, all saying the same thing. They believed they could make a difference because of what they had seen between him and Lily. The memory of her promise played again in his mind, not as a debt to be repaid, but as a shared understanding between two people who had met at exactly the right time. That meeting had shaped them both, and now, with the evidence all around him, Keanu knew that the promise had been fulfilled in the best way possible. Not through repayment, but through the passing on of kindness. The next afternoon, Keanu visited the community center where Lily now volunteered. The building buzzed with the sound of children laughing and the low hum of conversations between parents and staff. He stood quietly in the doorway for a moment, watching her work. She was kneeling beside a small boy who clutched a coloring book, listening intently to his story about the picture he had drawn. Her posture, her smile, and the patience in her voice, it was all so familiar. She had grown into the same kind of listener he had once been for her. When she noticed him, her face lit up. "You came," she said, walking over to give him a hug. "Of course," he replied with a warm smile. "I wouldn't miss seeing what you've built here." They walked together through the center, passing bulletin boards filled with art projects, photos, and thank you notes from families. Many of them bore messages about hope, gratitude, and community. It was clear Lily had become a force for good, quietly guiding others the way he had once guided her. Later, as the day wound down, the two of them sat on a bench outside the building, the late afternoon sun casting a golden glow across the street. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded note, a printout of one of the messages he had received online. It was from a woman in another country who had seen Lily's story and decided to start a free tutoring program for local kids. "This," Keanu said, handing her the note, "is how your promise has traveled farther than either of us could have imagined." Lily read the message slowly, her eyes welling up. "It's not just my promise," she said. "It's ours. You believed in me first." He shook his head gently. "No, I just gave you the first push. You did the rest." They sat in silence for a while, the sounds of the city around them fading into the background. In that moment, Keanu felt a deep sense of peace. The seed planted years ago had grown into something living, breathing, and unstoppable. As evening settled in, the city lights began to flicker on, one by one, casting their soft glow across the streets. Keanu looked out at the skyline, reflecting on the journey that had brought them both here. It started with a simple question from a little girl, a request for milk, that had blossomed into years of growth, connection, and transformation. He thought of the moments in between, the small victories Lily had celebrated, the challenges she had overcome, and the way she had carried her promise like a torch through the darkest times. This wasn't just about one act of kindness. It was about the chain reaction it sparked, touching lives he would never meet. In the quiet, Lily leaned her head against his shoulder. "Do you think everyone has a moment like that? One that changes everything?" "I think," Keanu replied after a pause. "We all have the chance for it, but it starts when we listen, when we care enough to notice the person in front of us." Her smile deepened, and she nodded. "Then I guess I'll just keep noticing." The scene faded into a gentle montage. Lily as a child, holding the glass of milk. Keanu kneeling to meet her gaze. The park bench conversation where she promised to give back. Maria's tearful gratitude during the hardest days. The fundraiser that filled the room with hope. Lily's first performance that went viral. And finally, the confident young woman working with children. Her promise still alive. Over the images, Keanu's voice carried softly. Promises made from the heart can change lives. They can outlast hardship, bridge generations, and inspire strangers to believe in goodness again. You never know when your smallest act might be the spark someone else has been waiting for. The final shot showed Lily, now surrounded by a group of smiling children, laughing as she helped them plant flowers in the community garden. Keanu's voice continued, warm and steady. Now it's your turn. Share your own story of unexpected kindness. Tell someone what it meant to you and maybe plant a seed of your own. The screen slowly faded to black, leaving only the words. For more incredible true stories, subscribe and join our journey.